Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the Impact Radio Show with your host, Nashawn Nix. Once again, this show is provided by the Florida Star newspaper, so please stay locked, stay loaded. We have a special guest representing the 5th Congressional District, your elected Congressperson, Al Lawson. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. It's good to be back in Florida.
And isolated, right?
Yes.
Yes, and there's such a pandemic that's hitting us globally, Congressman. What you all do for us in D.C. Thank you for pushing legislation, staying committed to the people. Can you please share with our listening and viewing audience what's going on, and can you please tell us about this stimulus package?
Okay, that's a very good question. We passed what they call the CARE Act.
Mm-hmm.
And since the outset of this crisis, we have been really, especially among Democrats, want to take a different direction in trying to, because people are out of work.
Yes.
You know, they got to pay their mortgages. You know, kids are not in school. Instead of creating a stimulus package that goes to Wall Street, we wanted to create a package that would go to Main Street, to put money in the hands of individuals, you know, for the first time, and to give them the opportunity to, when you confront it with these different obstacles, is for these mortgage companies and banks and stuff, is to put a hold on those mortgage payments for the ones who can't make the payment. You know, don't repossess their houses. You know, do not put them on the street. To make sure there's affordable health care, especially for testing for this virus that really caught a lot of us off guard, even though some people said they knew it was coming.
Right.
And at the same time, is to put money in. I remember talking to the Superintendent Green last week about making sure that they don't get hurt with the funding that they need, and also at the universities, especially historically Black colleges and stuff, students having to leave, you know, where they have to refund some of them for their
tuition
and so forth, is that, which put a big hurt on them, is to put down dollars into education so that they won't, for public schools and for higher institutions, you know, putting $30 billion in there so they will have the money to be able to do this. But one of the most important items for me was SNAP benefits, to increase the amount of SNAP benefits to about $15.8 billion, which means that people who are not working, they're going to need more food for their kids.
Yes.
And so without all the work requirements and so forth, to just make it available for people who are suffering, you know, at this particular time. But the one that people will probably have the most question about is, what about these direct payments?
That is going to be huge. That is going to be huge. And are you able to elaborate on that, Congressman?
Yes, I'm real proud of this one because worked real hard on it. Is to put $1,200 in every individual hands, $2,400 for a couple, and at the same time, $500 for each kid that is in the family.
Right.
You know, and the individual together cannot be making over $150,000 for a household. So that means that most people who need it the most is going to qualify. And there are people going to ask questions about, oh, the IRS, I hadn't filed taxes in 2 years. Am I excluded? No, they're not. We have to find them. The ones that have filed in the last 2 years, it'll be very easy to get the money to them.
All right. Now let me, if I can interject just for one quick second, Congressman, I got a question from Teresa Gamble. She's over a startup business called Start and Grind here in Jacksonville, and she's the local chapter director, and she'd like to address the state of small businesses about the COVID-19 Stimulus Act. What are the pros and cons of applying, and how soon will they receive the financial relief for small businesses who may not necessarily fit the criteria of people who haven't filed taxes, but they have put their whole life savings into their business, and they're in that first year and second year.
Yeah, those are the people that we are really concerned about. I am too, because I've been a small business person for about 36 years. And so I know what it's like when you don't have capital. And I know like a lot of these barber shops and beauty shops, and
Yes.
nail shops, and
Yes.
people like that are having to
Self-employed.
close down.
Yes.
You know, we provided $375 billion for small business relief. And they were out to pay for it. And my staff in Jacksonville and staff that covers from Jacksonville down to Lake City and places like that, they'll be able to help and making sure we get them through the paperwork in order to get these funds. But what is critical about this and never happened before, a lot of these dollars will come in grants.
Okay.
So that means they don't have to pay them back.
Oh, can you say that one more time? Can you say that one more time?
Much of this money is going to come down in grants that has never been done before. And they'll be able to get this grant money, getting their business back up and off the ground, and they don't have to pay it back. Now, there'll be other provisions where you can get loans, you know, because, you know, some people are going to need a lot more, you know, but I can tell you is that small businesses really, when you look at Jacksonville and see all the major corporations, but that's really not the backbone of the community. It's really the small businesses.
Right, right.
Those are the ones that put people to work, people coming right out of school, people who they pick up off the street and say you need a job and stuff like that. Those are the ones that we really need to make sure that their businesses survive. So this is going to be a big impact on small business, and they need to know that we are there to serve them. For the next 2 weeks when we are down and not back up in Washington, I'm going to be up and down the road when they allow us to travel, you know, to make sure the small businesses get this money that they need. And the banks are going to be flexible. You know, last week I worked with all of the major banks, Bank of America, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, all of them, to make sure that we're not going to have any problems.
Right.
This is a big issue that affects a lot of people. And so I tell you, from a small business person myself, I know what they have to go through, and I know what when they come in and tell people, say, we can't use you for a couple of weeks.
Yes.
We don't have the money. Well, we're going to make sure too that those people are going to be able to draw unemployment benefits for an additional $600 a week for the next 4 months. You know, providing an additional 13 weeks a federal funded benefit. So the employer is not going to have to pay it. These are federal funded benefits. And expand the eligibility to include workers in these gig economies and self-employed workers. And we have a lot of self-employed workers say, what I'm going to do? Well, they're going to qualify for that $600 per week for the next 4 months.
Wow.
We get through a lot of this crisis.
And now, obviously, some of your experience on the House Financial Services Committee kind of gives you an opportunity to read these numbers different than someone who may not necessarily be a part of that committee. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. You know, this is one thing I have to give credit to our chairperson, Maxine Waters, out of California, because I've had the opportunity to work with her on a lot of these issues and clearly understand the impact that we're going to have on small businesses. You know, we're concerned by the little local hair shop and barber shop on the corner. You know, what are they going to do? They got 4 barbers in there. They can't cut any hair.
Right.
You know, they can't do the weaves that a lot of these kids like. What are they going to do? They invested their life savings in these shops. How are they going to pay the rent? So we want to make sure that we keep them intact. So when this crisis is over, and God forbid, you know, only the Lord knows. But we are hoping in the next 6 months that things will be much more normal.
Yes. Now, if you can speak on this, Congressman, pertaining to some of the food deserts, especially in the northwest quadrant of Jacksonville, we do have a lot of seniors going from by Edward Waters College back down to the towers, the terrace downtown, back up to Dunn Avenue, being able to distribute produce, fresh produce. Is that within your bandwidth, or do you have any recommendations from from where you represent to be able to help the local community as far as being able to get access to fresh foods.
Well, we're gonna make sure that happen, and that's one of the reasons. We funded food banks, farm share programs.
Okay.
And I just happen to serve. Thank God I'm on it on the agriculture committee outside of financial services.
I see that. Yes.
And normally you can't serve on but one committee when you're on a select committee. But because of the nature of my district and because of the need of food and food insecurity throughout this district, from the Chattahoochee River to the St. Johns River in Jacksonville, I knew that food is an issue.
Right.
So we made sure that we funded these programs. They're going to have it to get these. Well, people really need to know one thing. We still have a lot of fresh produce and stuff in our fields and stuff.
Yes.
And so we want to make sure we get this and assign locations all over Duval where people will be able to pick up fresh produce and they don't have to worry about it. And I know that the food doesn't, I went to that battle over and over about Publix about them closing that store, but now even the big corporation realized after all of the profits that they made all these months off the back of all these people, they're beginning to get into the same fix as everybody. It's amazing that God works in mysterious ways.
Yes, he does.
Yeah,
yes, he does.
As a result, the people that they have overlooked and say they don't need, now they need.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they need us. And so as a result, these SNAP programs and the food and food pantries and stuff, people are not to go lacking. And one time, the reason why it gives us a lot of oversight is I've been also working with the Florida delegation, with the governor's office and everybody else to make sure that our people in Duval does not go hungry. That food is available, fresh vegetables available. I received a call from last week from Bishop McKissick, and he has offered to help in any way that he can. I'm talking later on today to Bishop Richardson, McLaughlin, and several other ones about opening up their facilities to help feed a lot of people in need. And it's going to work.
Yes.
Everybody's got to pull together. It's almost like we have a war going on in the world and all of us on the same side.
You better believe it.
Yeah. So nobody is working against each other at this time. We had one, Sean, representatives yesterday from Kentucky that tried to block this whole issue.
Wow.
But under the rules, he thought he could use the rules to do it. And even his own president went against him.
Wow.
And that's just how important it is to everyone, whether they're Democrats or Republicans at this point, is that America is at risk. It ain't the poor people. The poor, the Bible said the poor will always be with us.
Right.
It's everybody now.
Yes.
So you got to reach out to everybody. It's amazing how things work. When people are losing their lives, hospitals, I made sure that we put in money in there for over $200 billion for our hospitals. So the hospital, they're going to be able to see people when they need it. Healthcare, community service needs, protection for our kids. There's $200 billion in there. Now we just have to make sure that this money is for the people and not for the government.
Right. Now, I am a firm believer that we are stronger together. Divided we fall, united we stand. I get that. There has been a call in the Black community for leadership, and I get people telling me that. But I hear leadership, but leadership, in what aspect? Because it's too ambiguous just to say we need leaders. But how you said being able to convert churches into like food banks and distribution centers, is there any aspect from your perspective to where we do need assistance in these key areas as far as boots on the ground to help us get through this pandemic?
Oh yes, it's very important. The core of our communication has always been through the Black churches.
Okay.
No matter where you come from, no matter how high you've risen, in society, the key to the African American communication has been through the black churches and through the black newspapers
Right.
and through black radio. And what was true 20 years ago is still true today. Some people might think they have made it, but they haven't really made it as long as you leave somebody behind.
Mm.
And so as a result, our goal is to work. And I was real happy with a lot of my colleagues. We were working to think, and you had a couple of people saying, well, how are we going to help Bank of America? How are we going to help Wall Street? How are we going to help Walmart? How are we going to say, no. How Walmart and Bank of America and Wells Fargo, how are they going to help our people?
Yes.
We spend money with them, and that's been the issue. And so what we've done is gone to make sure that every aspect that affects human life and families is that they come first.
That's good. That's
They
good.
come first, and that's what we're going to do. So the churches, I've always believed, I grew up in the country, and the way we got our communication was through the churches.
Mm.
I grew up in a Pentecostal church, and so
Hallelujah.
and mother Pentecostal, my father was messy. So, and so I know where the communication came from, and so now what we need to do as politicians is not so much look towards the next election, but to look towards the people and their needs at this particular time. Election is not that important.
Mm-hmm.
What is important is whether we're taking care of millions of people who is hurt by this virus, coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're looking at. That's the most important thing. As people need to throw down the campaign signs and start looking to see who people are getting help. We're taking care of these kids, the kids who happen to be educated from home.
Right.
It's hard. Be just like a 6-year-old come and ask me to help with their math. I cannot help them with their math anymore.
They call it a new math now, Congressman. They call it new math.
Yeah, new math. I didn't have new math. I had timetable.
Now, Congressman, I do have a question for you pertaining to communication. We did talk about the Black church, and thank you for recognizing the influence of the Black newspapers like the Florida Star and others, as well as radio outlets for a centralization of information. But for certain elders, they may not be as privy to those outlets of media and social media, but to where we can guide people for more information. Where can we guide them for any additional information if we're not able to contact you directly?
Well, we have asked Elder Services to get information out to all of the agencies that provide resources to our elderly population. My mother was in a nursing home, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And also I have a staff I have 5 staffers in Jacksonville, and to spend their time responding to the needs of every community organization that needs something, for us, the Urban League or the NAACP, you just name us, to get this information out.
Yes.
In the next week or so is to even calling in to the different heads of all of the program that affects our senior citizens, and talking with them. And the minute that they give us a thing that we can travel, I will be going into all those facilities.
Awesome. So you will be on the ground as well.
Puts on the ground. That's what it's all about. I am a senior myself, and so I know what it takes to get information down to people. And it's much better when you come into the facilities and talk to people, like I've done before, that are sitting around the tables, having their lunch, and explain to them what's going on. And you know what they don't realize is they got a check coming too.
They do. Oh, you're right. They are citizens. They are
Yeah.
citizens. Yes, you're right. They are citizens.
They got $1,200. I want to make sure they don't let nobody take their money once they get it.
Amen to that. Amen to that. And typically, when it comes to the most vulnerable, they and sometimes also neglected would be our seniors. So, and I appreciate you making yourself accessible and available to communicate that message to them. And I know that they're going to be excited about it. I'm going to transition to one more thing.
Okay.
I see 200 billion in hospitals, health systems, and health research, including expanded funding for the personal protective equipment desperately needed by our healthcare workers, including ventilators, masks, gowns, gloves, and etc. Out of that 200 billion, going to like the #1 trauma facility in Jacksonville. We call it Shands. Some people call it UF Shands.
Right.
In other hospitals. Now, is that still under your scope as well, making sure that our hospitals here in Jacksonville are getting the equipment and tools that they need to be able to give our people that critical attention?
Absolutely. And that's one thing that is critically needed, not only for the hospital, but in all of the healthcare system, and also the research that they're doing. You know, all of this is taking place. We got caught off guard in America during the Obama administration. Some of the things that Obama set up, so if something like this epidemic happened, because he had gone through the Ebola crisis, these things would be in place. But the president came in and got rid of all of them. And so now they're having to go back. These doctors and stuff, you know, the president just acts as if nothing really happened, but he's really changed a little bit to realize that this stuff is really needed. And so we expanded in this thing, included expanding funds for the personal protection equipment, which these hospitals and healthcare agents don't have.
Correct.
And they're desperately needed. We desperately need to take care of the healthcare workers.
Yes, yes.
These ventilators and all this other, the gowns and gloves and stuff, all of that is going to be included in the 200 billion that we set aside. And so it's coming, and it's a shame, Sean, that it's taken this long. We should have been able to do it 3 weeks ago, but
Right.
This is the politics of government. And so we had to get through the politics of government and now make it a reality. You're talking about a joyful time is when we passed that bill yesterday. Oh man, it was yesterday afternoon. That was a great thing to see Democrats and Republicans shaking hands and saying that we're doing it for the people.
Yes.
Their people are our people. Our people are their people. You know, I mean, we're in this game together.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And now, last thing, pertaining to the unemployment, there have been challenges because here in Jacksonville, a lot of people have what you call like cell phone and tablets. They don't necessarily have laptops and desktops to be able to apply for that unemployment services. Is that something that anybody has brought to your attention on a federal level, or does that fall under your scope?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
They brought it, and I understand that. And that's a very good observation. And that's one of the reasons why our staff in Jacksonville is going to help them through this process. And we're going to have to help other people in a lot of rural areas throughout this district.
That's right.
Same thing you're talking about.
Yes.
You know, nobody just envisioned that you need this kind of help.
Correct.
But that's what we're there to help them with. And in the state of Florida, and speaking to the governor, I think it was Thursday, I brought that to the forefront, and they also is going to ask their people to help. This is, we don't want people to go without getting the help they need in order to qualify for these benefits. These benefits are not coming down to the state of Florida for them to put into their budget. It's coming down for the people. And nothing for them to save on. All of this money. And then we have I'd like to mention to you before I forget it, Sean, we're going back to do a fourth round of stimulus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you need to know this. On the fourth round of stimulus, we're going to try to do some things like increase SNAP benefits by 15%.
Yes.
You know, We're going to increase more money so that school will be able to provide school luncheon and breakfasts during the summer. And let me tell you, I've gone and looked at a lot of them. These luncheon and stuff are pretty good. You're just not throwing things on the table. These are good nutritionist meals for these kids.
Right.
So, we're going to do a lot of stuff in the next stimulus package for some of the infrastructure needs in our communities. We are going to, and people look at some mistakes that we might have made in this package, correct those mistakes, and to make sure there's less paperwork and stuff for small businesses to be able to do their job.
Yes. You're speaking my language, Congressman. You're speaking my language.
No. Well, look, I'm just happy that you can spread the news. This is a very important, and I told him the other day, one of the best way to spread the news is not so much telephone contact but through gospel station, gospel program, because I know what people are listening to.
Yes. And one of the things about a crisis, a crisis is going to reveal who you are at the core. It's going to reveal who you are at the core, and to find out if you are who you say you are. And thank you for making yourself accessible, available, providing basically DC information and bringing it back to Jacksonville, bringing it back home to us, to where we're able to disseminate that information to our local parishes, congregations, and etc. Because we can't always rely on social media for concrete information.
Right.
And thank you.
And let me tell you one other thing. Some people are going to be afraid to apply for their money because they say, I might owe the IRS. This isn't about what they owe to the IRS. This money is for them.
Thank you for that clarification.
IRS cannot mess with these funds. These are funds for them to feed their family, help pay their rent, and to stay on their feet until they're able to go back to work again. So they don't need them being afraid. There was one question I got asked yesterday from a gentleman calling in from Quincy.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I'm a barber and I owe the IRS and I'm trying to catch up. He said, are they going to exclude me? I said, no, they're not going to exclude you.
Wow.
They're going to send you the money.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, it is much needed. This is definitely that time, and I believe with the information that we covered today, it should be able to provide some form of mental relief and some stress relief, because, like I said, people can come out of that form of panic and hyperventilation and how am I going to get through this, because help is not on the way, help is here, and and thank you again for what you do for the people, for the 5th Congressional District. In DC.
And thank you for having me on the program today.
Yes, and now real quick, if people want to reach out to you, is www.lawson.house.gov. Is that correct?
That's correct. Tell them to please reach out.
Yes, and once again, this is our Congressman Al Lawson. This is an exclusive live interview with the Impact Radio Show presented by the Florida Star newspaper. As I always say, knowledge is power. Knowledge of self is powerful. Knowledge of God is a source of all power. Get up, get out, and support the Florida Star newspaper. I love you. God bless you, and goodbye.